Very nice,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Thank you. I'm here at the Pinelands Folk Music Center at the Rancocas Village Shops in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. I'm with Rich and Mary Carty. It's good to see you guys again.
Thanks a lot.
Many
Thanks a lot
years
for coming.
since I've been with you. As you might tell, folks, this is a primarily dulcimer shop. That sweet music you just heard was being played on a pair of mountain or lap dulcimers.
Right.
Right.
And very well done, very nice. People are attracted.
Yes, they are. We were attracted to it. For us, it was about our only chance to play something besides the kazoo back in 1979. For others, they like the quietness, they like the simplicity. Sometimes they like just being anti-high tech after a stressful day of, in a high tech world. They just like something that's a throwback to these times. So, yeah, it's catching on constantly with more and more people.
And how long have you guys been in business here?
We've been in business a little over 9 years.
Okay, it's very good, wonderful. I think the last time we were at the retreat up in French Creek Park, I'm talking about 7 years ago, I think is the last time we were there. And I remember you guys had a table there and were very involved in the organization of it. And there was an awful lot of people playing hammer dulcimers, lap dulcimers, and they were doing things that we're looking at it and say, my God, that isn't the way you're supposed. There was one guy playing it like a guitar. He had it like that and like that. He was from California, I think, just stopped by. And I still remember the way he was getting sounds out of this instrument that you wouldn't think were in there.
That is quite a while ago then you were there.
Yeah.
I remember that was one year when Neil just came by real quick.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, Neil Hellman stopped in real quick, and he plays it both up this way, and he also plays it on his head.
But the sounds that were coming out of that instrument.
That's a long time ago.
You think of a little old lady in the Appalachians strumming and singing Amazing Grace.
Right, playing with a noter and a turkey quill.
Yeah, this guy was doing some wild stuff. So it's not just for sitting and strumming one note at a time folk songs. There's some really complex melodies that can come out of these instruments.
Yeah.
It's really wild.
Usually what happens with us here is I take care of the beginners. So all the beginner songs, like the boiling cabbage down and row, row your boat and all those things, I know them like inside out and backwards, and I also know them by playing by number and by sound. So I usually take the people to the stage to where they can handle the dulcimer, like the playing techniques, the logistics of it, like, this is how you hold it, this is the best way to hold it. I always tell people there's no Bible rule. So if somebody says to you, you have to hold it this way, turn around and walk the other way as fast as you can.
As quickly as possible,
right,
yes.
Because you should be able to, if you have to adapt it to a certain way of playing for you, holding it or something, that's up to you. But then what I usually do is I turn around and they graduate to Richard. I give them to Richard to teach after they've had some lessons with me, because when it comes to theory and stuff, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about what key you're playing in or what this technique is or that technique. I just like to play the dulcimer just for its simplicity, and Richard gets a little bit more complicated.
It's a wonderful instrument. First of all, from the sound with the drone string and the sound it puts out, but you can be as simple or as complex as you like. And you can go as far with it as you care to go. There's some real masters who can do some great things with this instrument. Would you do me a favor? Pardon me. One of you, show the parts of one of these mountain dulcimers. What makes it work. And then later on we'll be looking at a hammer dulcimer.
If I don't mess it up.
A little bit of the origins of it, the folklore of it, if you will.
Well, I know the mountain dulcimer from what we know. It came out of Hinman, Kentucky. It was E.A. Thomas, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, honey. Gene Ritchie was one of the first players that brought it out of the hills and brought it into the coffee houses and places in New York. And then from there, it just kind of started to grow. We happened to see it the first time, like Rich said, in 1979. It was kind of a standing joke because we kind of say we heard it over an 8-foot stockade fence. We crawled up to see what was on the other side playing, and my husband here, knowing that I had played the violin in school and had put it under the bed and forgotten about it, thought that, well, gee, this is something JB is what he calls me, a nickname, could play. And so he went out and got me one from the wish book, the Sears wish book. He is a National Guardsman, went to go away to National Guards, and he took my dulcimer with him, which really aggravated me. So I, in turn, being the woman I am, went into Sears and got another one. So when he came home, we were the proud owners of 2 dulcimers.
I think that started something, didn't
Yes.
it?
And
Both Sears and Roebucks, $32.95 specials.
There's a whole nother story that goes with that, which we could tell you a lot of things about. But we just started building from there. We started in our home with some cardboard dulcimers teaching children. We did some church camps, and then it just evolved into what is here now. But the mountain dulcimer, what I like about it, comes in different shapes. This happens to be the most standard, most traditional. It's an hourglass shape. It has a fingerboard, the sound box, and then you have your regular tuners. Some of them have this is just a machine tuner. These happen to be a little bit nicer tuners. It depends.
That's a planetary tuner.
Yeah. This is almost like your banjo tuners and like that. But they just take regular standard strings. People will come in the shop and say, "Oh, I need dulcimer strings," but it depends on the gauge of the strings. In any guitar or banjo player, I think banjo strings are good because they're longer. That's the only thing you have to be very careful with. Like, you wouldn't want to put mandolin strings on this because mandolin strings would be shorter. But that's one thing I love to educate people about, is that an 012 is an 012, no matter, point 012, no matter what it is. If it's a banjo or it's a dulcimer string or guitar string, it's an 012.
It's a matter of packaging.
Right, yes. So, and the length is important, because different dulcimers do have different string lengths. You have your frets, your standard frets, that would go across the dulcimer. And this happens to be a faux craft that Richard's had for quite a while, and it's a very lovely one. It has a nice...
That looks like maple?
Yeah. Curly maple, and it's got a nice inlay on the back. And this is, I think, we've had this one quite a while.
1986, I think.
Yeah. So.
Well played. Yeah.
Yes.
And basically, this is in what is called DAD tuning. This is a D, this is an A, and this is a high D. But basically, your finger goes on this side, like this. Your finger would go on this side, because what you're doing is you're lengthening and shortening the distance of the string. So you're actually acting like this nut, and your finger's coming up, and that's lengthening or shortening the string to get the note. So it's just... Now this is not a traditional dulcimer because it has what they call 6.5 fret. And a traditional one would not have that 6.5 fret, one of the older dulcimers. That's something that the old timers sometimes kind of go like this when they see it, but it helps out with the playing a little bit. But basically the dulcimer, one of the unique things about it is it has that wham sound, that
the drone is always
right. So you have
there, yeah.
right. So you have this D and this A that's constantly droning. So when you're playing, but you can also play chords. There's a lot of different ways to play, but one of the things that I really like is that drone sound.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Scottish and Irish people like that. That's where they feel that this evolved from, was someone took this fingerboard that looks a lot like a scheithold, which is a German instrument, which was like the big bedpost or the big post. You ever see the beds with the big posts?
Yes.
Okay. They took that had a lot of strings on it, but it was solid. And they felt that somebody took one of these and maybe put it like on a countertop like this, and in turn, putting that on the countertop made the countertop the sound box.
Okay.
And the Irish people hearing that, who left a lot of their bagpipes and everything, I guess, at home, heard that drony sound, and that's what happened. So you have that constant drone. I was once told that, and I think this is one of the things that started us with playing with other people, was that if you got 10 dulcimers in a room playing at the same time, and these 2 strings were buzzing, okay? You've got 10 people with 2 strings just droning. That's 20 strings going wah, wah, wah. And that if you were playing the same notes, that it would overtake it. Well, we've had jam sessions in our back room where I've actually stood in the center, with a lot of beginners, and you can actually hear that.
Now, explain overtake it. What do you mean?
Being that, because if you figure you've got 20 strings
yes.
that are making this
Oh.
drone and you only have 10 strings,
Overpower the melody.
right,
Yes,
that are playing
okay.
the melody,
Gotcha.
you're going to have, all you're going to hear is that wah 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 wah.
Like a didgeridoo or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've always gotten people, like with this song, where I was just playing the chords. Well, why not do chords up? Do different. Instead of doing a D chord here, do a D chord here. Instead of doing your G here, why not do the G up here? And you can also give it the bassier sound by, you know, whatever's played this way can also be played this way.
So you get a lot of different sounds
Right.
contributing.
So when you're
to the
playing
music.
one,
Yeah.
you don't have one person just playing the melody. You have one person playing the chords, one person playing the melody. That's where our Sunday Circle came from, our group that we had. When we went out and played, I was mostly the melody player, and I also played the upright bass. But Sue, a girl that was with us, was very good at counter melodies, and Linda was very good at harmonies, and they would play the other parts. And Rich always took the hard parts. And then he plays his Hammer Dulcimer.
Now, I know that you guys are involved in the Greater Pinelands Dulcimer Society.
We're actually founding members of that.
Okay. And how many people are in that?
Well, right now our attendance is a little low, but as always, if anybody has ever been involved in a nonprofit organization, you do tend to have times where your group goes down lower, but we're on a back upswing again, which is nice. The officers have changed, and I think there's going to be a lot coming new of that too this year. But Rich and I were 2 of the 12 original members. They met in someone's house, and in the Ironstone building, and then we met in people's houses and rotated around, and then when it started getting too big, then they started having a place to meet. We used to meet at the Nature Center, now they meet here. The Dulcimer Society does, and it's still alive and well, and it meets from September to June, the first Tuesday of the month. It's always here in our back room.
I think there's an awful lot of these instruments sitting under beds and
Yes,
cases in the
and-
backs of closets. Hey guys, if you got one in your house, get it out, get some strings and dust it off. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. They're fun to play.
Oh,
My
yes.
wife, Trudy, plays a lap dulcimer and loves it. It brings her a lot of peace. She plays some of the hymns and sings along, and you don't have to play in a group. You don't have to perform.
No,
It's a very personal thing.
I think all of us have that little spark inside us
Yeah.
that we want to make some kind of music,
Yes.
and I don't care who you are, and even if somebody's told you that you're tone deaf, which I can't figure out if you can pass a hearing test, you can't be tone deaf. But you could be lost in a little bit of your hearing, but you know, I really don't think people are tone deaf. But
If you-
anybody can learn to
If you
play
can
this.
hum,
You can
if
play
you
it.
can hear the melody and follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, if you can count from 1 to 10 and walk and chew gum at the same
You
time,
can play a
I can
dulcimer.
teach you how to play.
Yes.
And I've taught a lot of people in 5 minutes here on that saying that to them, you know.
Well, we tell people that we can teach you to play a song on the 5-string banjo in less than a half an hour.
I give them 5 minutes
And
with
you
me.
can do it.
Oh, adults take longer.
Now we're going to give Rich a chance to talk. Up behind you here, several different types. We've talked about the hourglass. I see some teardrop shapes.
Yeah, all things being equal, this is the teardrop shape. This is the other common shape, dulcimer. And again, all things being equal, these tend to be a little bassier, tend to be a little less responsive, high up here on the fingerboard in the high treble range. Usually deliver more bass.
Do people buy these for the sound they make or for the aesthetics of the style?
I'm not sure. After all these years, I'm still not sure.
I'd say 50-50.
Okay.
Some ladies will come in and want them for the looks, you know.
I'm kind of an hourglass guy myself.
I've always associated the dulcimer with the hourglass.
Men and their hourglasses, right?
We can dream.
I said hourglass, not shot glass.
So yeah, it's basically the same dulcimer. It's like I said, usually all things being equal, the treble and bass relationship's a little different.
But played basically the same way.
Played exactly the same
instructions.
way.
But they are pretty instruments. Is this also a folkways?
No, this is built, I believe, in Mullica Hill. We have
Okay.
a builder down the road. We feature dulcimers built by some local builders, one in Haddonfield, one in Mullica Hill. We also get some from Folkcraft Instruments in Winstead, Connecticut. And so, just like with the Hammer Dulcimers, we offer a variety of makes and builders and give people really a good choice. there's nothing like going and picking out your instrument.
Yes.
You know, you can
Mm-hmm.
see them all you want on the internet or mail order or whatever, but you know, they did come out of different trees. So, I mean, the next one over came out of a different tree and will sound somewhat different. And usually when I go up to my supplier in Connecticut, Folkcraft, I'll pick them out, you know, because my customers, I'll be playing music with them likely in maybe the following month. So, you know, here we don't operate like an impulse buying like a big tourist attraction place like Branson or Disney World or someplace. You know, we really take care of our customers.
You know, I'm going to give an example of that right now. We were waiting to start this interview, and the phone rang, and Mary answered it, and it was someone was in here a while ago, and these folks spent time with them, demonstrating, teaching them how to play a dulcimer, and the lady's husband called and ordered it for her birthday.
Yes.
This particular one, in
That
fact.
particular one.
And you know, that's because someone took the time to sit down and plant the seed of you can play this dulcimer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really it's nice that there's a place where you can go and do that and know that when you walk in, it's not like picking something up at a Walmart
Right.
and walking out. You're going to be fitted with an instrument, or you know, try it, play it, talk about it, get a little bit of the feel.
Yeah. We try
of,
to take care of our customers. I think that's why we've been here for 9 years,
Yeah.
like we have, you know, in the storefront. And it's because people do come back. I have people that come back. They've seen us 4 years ago at a festival or something. Go, oh, you were, you know, I just really liked the way you were. You know, we've come back and we want to, you know, try for dulcimer, and you know.
Yes.
I will say though, I had one person one time, only one, in my whole time of ever playing this dulcimer, that the lady came and wanted to give the dulcimer back, but it was because she said it made her nervous. But she was 83 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll give her a kazoo or something, or
She couldn't handle keeping it tuned.
Yes.
It bothered
It can
her.
be scary. Tuning is a hard thing
Yes.
for somebody who isn't. We take it for granted,
Yeah.
but it's as hard to learn to tune sometimes as it is
Yes.
to learn the basics of playing. Now this one's deeper.
Yeah, this is this one that you mentioned in particular, the lady just called for. This is called a baritone, actually.
Okay.
So what happened is Folkcraft bought out Folk Roots in California. They always had deeper sound boxes with longer fingerboards, and then this kind of phenomena came about called a baritone dulcimer. And basically, players are used to in the key of D, you know. So this has the heavier strings, it's tuned lower, and is tuned actually down to the key of A, but has the exact same fingering as the D dulcimer.
Okay. Wow, that's some bass. I don't know if that'll pick it up or not. Very, very resonant bass. And
So yeah, we try to accommodate. So we've kept one baritone in for anybody that's so inclined, and this lady, you know,
I'm sure she'll get a lot of joy out of it.
Oh yeah.
Now she also gets a lesson with it.
One free lesson comes with all the mountain
Okay.
dulcimers.
Good. Good.
And then after that, our lessons are very reasonable. If you do purchase your instrument from us, it's a different price than what the lessons are if you come in with a dulcimer. We had to start doing that because people, impulsive buyers, would buy them like in Branson and places, and then come here and
Yes.
then want lessons. And I thought, well, you know, I've got to do something. So I just made the lessons are a little bit more expensive if you buy your dulcimer somewhere else.
Yes. And that's fair.
Yeah.
Because these places don't grow like mushrooms. They need a customer base, and you take care of the customers, and a loyal customer is.
Oh, I've already changed strings for people. You know, people come in, they break a string, I put a new string on and everything. And if it's just a quick, you know, few minute job, and half the time I just, you know, give me the money for the string, you know, or whatever. But a lot of places don't do that anymore.
Do you repair dulcimers?
Little things. I can do some little stuff. I can't do a whole lot, but you know, there's a few little repairs. Plus, I do have this builder now from Allenwood Dulcimers in Mullica Hill, and he will do some repairs. He has done some for me. He will also custom make the dulcimers. So if you have he did one where he put a wolf wolf prints for a girl.
Okay.
So.
Price-wise, to get into a mountain dulcimer, what are people looking at? A range.
I would say we have a couple that are $250, but they're $350. I would say is the good price range for a dulcimer now. I mean, I don't have.
You start at what?
Yeah.
2? What do you start at? We don't have any here.
Well, these little guys are. The little
I'm
guys
not
are.
counting that,
Yeah,
but-
they're like student ones. They're $150, but it's $250 and up. But
For one
I
of
have
the-
more $350s than I do anything because
Yeah.
that's about the middle line, and that's where I really think if you're going to buy a dulcimer to get it in good, solid, musical quality woods, you're going to pay about $350.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I guess-
350 gives you really, and this model here would be 350.
And that's
And-
solid. That's not
And
mahogany.
that features solid woods. The sound is going to be better. You know, the fingerboard is going to be really accurate.
It's a
and-
lifetime instrument.
Yes.
Right, and coming up from the bottom, it's like anything else you buy. If you buy washing machines or cameras or anything else, what the bottom price model is always built to a price.
Yes.
So you're using almost the same amount of labor with cheaper materials.
Whereas the baritone runs $500 selling.
So we find that now I consider you can get a heck of a nice dulcimer that'll, you know, you'll be happy with for a long time for $350.
And I guess the same advice that goes for a banjo or a guitar, you buy the best instrument that you can afford.
Yes.
Don't buy it on price, buy what you can,
Right.
the
Go
best
with,
that you can.
Right. Go with what you can. And we've had people that have come in like and bought the little student ones and then come back. And as long as it's in good shape, you know, we've given them a decent trade in on it. You know, especially if it's a dulcimer that you bought from us. We had one Hammer Dulcimer that went in and out of here, I think, 5 times. It was a little starter one, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, we haven't seen it for a while now, but, you know, it's like.
And also on mountain dulcimers, I mean, you can spend like $1,200, but like everything else, you know, consumer goods, you reach a point of diminishing returns. So, you know, by spending $1,200 on a mountain dulcimer, it may be 10 to 15% better. You know, so
With a lot more inlay, maybe.
yeah, and you're getting a lot more workmanship that's for aesthetics, and so, you know, anywhere from $350 will get you a good dulcimer, and you know, up to $500 is really a good instrument for a good price kind of value range. I consider.
I see a harp over here. You sell.
Yeah, they're by Dave Field.
Is that an Irish harp? Is that what
It's
they call it?
an Irish folk harp,
Folk
yeah,
harp,
or a
yeah.
lap harp, they would
Okay.
call it. It's one without the he will put levers on them, but that doesn't have the levers. But that's by Dave Field from Haddonfield, New Jersey.
It's a pretty instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And where are these played? Who would play something?
We have a couple people that belong to the folk society that have harps. Plus, I know of a harp teacher in Morristown and one in Lakewood. So it's not like I do know teachers that you can go to for that. So.
Is that a difficult instrument
No.
to learn?
I don't think so.
I do. I consider it.
I don't think so, but he does.
I consider it a little difficult. It's, to me, it's like a piano. You know, you're doing the bass with the left hand and the melody with the right sort of thing. So when you
Like that.
Okay.
go into the range, so it's sort of piano-like, and then a little bit unlike dulcimers, which are kind of, we don't have many rules. There's bracketing, so you have to pre-position your fingers, run through a run of notes, and then reposition your whole hand. So there's, to me, it's a little bit more classical in nature than, let's say, Hammer Dulcimer. Or
But
certainly-
not impossible.
No, not impossible. It's-
Oh, there again, learning the basics, I guess, the exercises, and like you say, the bracketing and all
yeah,
that. but-
and
Takes a little more dedication, I
yeah.
think. the
Now, is that a
harp.
soundboard in the back of it there?
Yes, this would be your soundboard here. This is actually a sound box.
and neither of us play, so sorry we can't give you a demonstration.
Okay, but it is
Yeah.
they're beautiful instruments. They look very well.
Well,
made.
Dave does real good with his harps, and he keeps them inexpensive, which is nice. So if it's someone who wants to start, I mean, harps can run you as much as $3,000. So they're a very good starter harp if somebody wants to, you know, find out. They don't want to put a whole lot into it.
Is this
find out
what
if
I
they can do it
want?
first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of times people will get them, and you know, some people catch on to it real well and do go flying with it, and other people. I had an 8-year-old girl who came in here, and she must have came in here for a whole year, coming in every so often, playing, until finally her parents rented one for her. Now she's been over to Ireland and won and
Wow.
everything. Yeah.
Good. So, well, now you just segued into something else. If your kid shows an interest in a dulcimer, a harp, a banjo,
Yeah.
anything, encourage it.
Oh, yes.
Buy them a quality instrument and find a competent teacher. And get them out playing with people, and my God, the roads it leads them down.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure, well, you
Yes.
guys have seen it. over
Oh,
the
yeah.
years.
We've
Yeah.
seen it even with Hammer Dulcimer players. Christy Burns, a young girl she went to California to go to college. She started here, didn't know nothing about the Hammer Dulcimer, and she's just like a whirlwind on it now. She calls us her musical parent. She writes us every so often.
Isn't that a good feeling?
Yeah,
Yes, it
tells
is,
us
yeah.
what she's doing. Yeah.
And you're proud of
Christy's-
her, aren't you?
Oh, yes,
Oh, yeah.
very
Believe
much
it.
so.
You have to send her a copy of this interview.
Yeah.
I feel like kind of served as a launch pad for her,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is a good feeling.
Now, I also see here lots of tapes and accessories and books, so it's a full-service
Mhm.
shop.
Yeah, we do CDs and books. We don't do any cassette tapes anymore because they've kind of gone by the wayside. But we have the CDs and the books, and we specialize in folk instruments like the Pineland, piney type music they call it,
Mhm.
or
Tin whistles.
tin whistles, and mostly the mountain dulcimer, hammer dulcimer, and harp, music. But
Now, if somebody, we're going to talk about hammer dulcimers in just a minute, but if somebody wants to, say they live in Columbus, Ohio, or
Mhm.
Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they want to play a mountain dulcimer or a hammer dulcimer, how do you find dulcimer players? You can't stand on the corner with a flag.
you can go on
How do you
there's
find
a
them?
lot of, if you go to the DPN is one thing, if you get that, but there's also
Dulcimer
Dulcimer
Player.
Players News. Madeline McNeil, who's a good friend of ours, a personal friend. She's the editor of that, and that's been around for quite a while. That's a good magazine that you can get.
We'll get that address from you.
Yeah, and you can also get that on they have a website.
Okay.
There's a dulcimer list that I don't seem to get on that too much anymore because it wound up being too much gossip for me. But there's
Yeah, there
all
is
kinds
internet.
of things. There's
Internet.
all kinds of internet
Like
stuff.
anything else you want, you can find things on
Okay.
the internet.
And we've
you can
also
find us on the internet
Yes,
if you look hard enough.
yes, we're on the internet too.
What's your URL?
Pinelandsfolk.com.
Okay.
But I forget. Yeah, I lost. Oh, one time when we first started here, that was when we were working out of the house. We had a man that was from Washington State, and he wanted to buy a dulcimer and take it back with him. Well, he did, and he took back some books that we recommended. You can teach yourself mountain dulcimer by Mel Bay. That's Maddie's book, Madeline McNeil's book. Because at that time there wasn't a lot of dulcimer books. We also sent him some cassette tapes through the mail. He would send us, he'd write to us, and we'd do a few songs on a cassette tape, and send it to him. And I also had a woman from British Columbia who came here. She squeezed in as many less she could in the 16 weeks that she was here for the Ball Company. They have a factory over a couple towns over, and she was here doing stuff for them. But she squeezed in. It was like she was coming to me 3 times a week, but she got all the lessons in she could, and then took that back with her. So I've taught people from all over.
So you can find local societies on the internet,
Yes. Yes.
or the Dulcimer Players News.
Or I also say put a little ad in newspaper.
Okay.
Put a little ad in newspaper, want to get together and, play.
There you go again, segueing.
Yeah.
We ran an ad for a friend of ours who we're teaching to play the banjo. He wants to jam with people.
Mm-hmm.
So we ran an ad in a local newspaper. And just last week we had 9 people in his house sharing music, banjos, guitars, harmonicas, mandolin,
Mm-hmm.
and we got something started there. So you can do that too. Put a little ad in the newspaper, looking for dulcimer players or whatever you want to play with, and you'd be surprised at the responses
Oh, yeah.
you will get.
And it's people from all walks of life.
Yes.
We had a picnic one time at our house, and there was a Volkswagen bus outside that looked like it should have been towed away, and a Lincoln Continental that was brand new off the lot.
Yep.
I mean, so you never know who's
Well,
musically inclined or who wants to play.
It's a common language.
Yeah.
Whether
Music-
you're a rich man,
yes.
poor man, beggar man, thief,
Yes.
you're playing the same notes,
Mhm.
and you're communicating at the same
And it
level.
goes back to that I say that we all have this little spark inside us where we all, I guess it comes back from primitive man, we all want to make some kind of music.
Yes, it's inside all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, Mr. Hammer Dulcimer,
Yes.
where did the Hammer Dulcimer originate? And I heard you playing a little while ago. We're really looking forward. We're going to go in and get a little demonstration. But they're totally different instruments.
Yes, they are. There's some irony there. the Hammer Dulcimer is believed to have evolved, or originated, I should say, in Persia, ancient Persia. And they think what happened is it moved west into the Byzantine Empire and then up into Eastern Europe, where it was fairly common. It was into Greece. It was known as the santur in Persia, the santori in Greece. And it was played in Romania, and then up into Hungary. And actually, in Hungary, achieved its highest level of evolution. It became the cymbalum in Hungary. And the cymbalum, grew to be about 200 pounds, have chromatic notes, damper pedals like a piano. I mean, it had everything a piano had except keys.
Like a harpsichord on steroids, right?
Yeah.
That was a good one.
So then they think that not as widely influential, but it came through North Africa and then up into Spain. They have a painting or a drawing in a church in Spain where it came, they believe, from the Moors. By the time it got to Western Europe, it was not much of an influential instrument, and the reason being is the piano was only a short time behind it. Its major influence in Western Europe was the idea of the tone of a struck string. So they liked the tone. They didn't like some of the other things about the instrument, and when you look at it, you'll see the goofy layout is one thing they didn't like. They didn't like the sustain that they couldn't kill. So it became really the heart of a piano. When you open up the piano, like all us curious kids do, there's hammers striking strings. So before the harpsichord, it goes in and plucks the string.
Now, let me interrupt you 1 second. Does the Hammer Dulcimer predate the piano?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
By far. I mean, the Hammer Dulcimer is, it's a derivative. The santur is ancient. Okay. So it was around a while, but they had keyboard instruments, clavichord and harpsichord, and they were a nice layout, nice usable layout, but the sound wasn't there. The Hammer Dulcimer had a real basic nice tone, the tone of a struck string. So the pianoforte in Italy came about, in about 1750, and combined the nice striking tone of a string, and combined with a nice logical key layout of let's say, a harpsichord. And so in Western Europe, I think that was really the most contribution the Hammer Dulcimer made. It was in Germany and Switzerland, known as a Hochbrett, and it's in East Anglia, in the British Isles, but never made much of an impact, other than I think its contribution to the piano. In other words, Vivaldi never wrote anything for it, and Eastern Europe, by contrast, the gypsies with the cymbalums and Romanian gypsies with santuris, they would be street musicians, itinerant street musicians. So the forms of the Hammer Dulcimer in Eastern Europe are a little bit more influential. They used a lot of street dance music. In this country, the first evidence we have of Hammer Dulcimer was right here in Philadelphia in 1717, and we get that out of a diary. A gentleman went to a dance and noted about the sound of the Hammer Dulcimer. So certainly more, the people who came over in the 18th century, certainly they weren't of the upper class, a lot of them, and it was certainly hard to bring pianos with them on the ships, So the Hammer Dulcimer evidently came over in some limited quantities. Again, this country, details are a little sketchy. We know that they've been in wagon trains going through Kansas. We have some evidence of that. In the latter part of the 19th century, we saw an upswing of Hammer Dulcimer. There was quite a large pocket of players in Michigan. There was some players up in northwestern New York. And there was also a startup of companies that would manufacture Hammer Dulcimers. They could, be had in Sears catalog, and there was different companies. So it was on the rise in the late 19th century, and then a couple of things happened. We had the affluence of the gay 90s, and then we had this thing called ragtime came in, and by that time the Hammer Dulcimer just kind of fell out of favor. You know, people now could build and buy pianos, and now there was more musical styles that were interesting to play on them, and so the Hammer Dulcimer just remained in, we feel, in the early 20th century, just a pocket of players in Michigan and a few in, you know, North and Western New York. There was, Henry Ford had a dance orchestra, and he was kind of an old-fashioned kind of a guy. You know, he didn't like the Charleston, didn't like ragtime, and he actually had a Hammer Dulcimer in his orchestra, dance orchestra, and he continued that through the 1920s. But that was about the last bit of exposure or anything other than these, I've said, pockets of players in Michigan and New York. And so the instrument, as you'll see in a short while, is totally different. I mean, there's just nothing similar. They share the same name, Dulcimer, and Dulcimer is just an ancient word. It means sweet sound. It's so old it appears in the third book of Daniel. The irony of it is the mountain dulcimer kind of fell out of favor about the same time period. Now, in the late 19th century, we had an influx of mandolins and banjos into the mountains, and of course, they became more capable instruments to play some of the Appalachian dance music than was the dulcimer. The dulcimer, the players, you know, it wasn't just the instrument; it was the players themselves as well. But you were locked into one key. You know, you had a quieter instrument, and so the mountain dulcimer kind of fell out of favor about the same time frame. Even though, like I said, they were in a little bit different parts of the country and nothing alike, they share kind of the same or a similar history there. Again, by the 1920s, they, except for the Appalachian Mountains, you know, virtually unheard of. The folk, like Mary had said earlier, Gene Ritchie came out of the mountains in about 1948 and started playing in New York City with dulcimer, and gradually the dulcimer started catching on with folk musicians, and then the folk music revival of the 60s saw the rebirth of mountain dulcimer. And then people would go to, say, the Harvard Dictionary of Music and look up dulcimer and would not see this primitive instrument, but they would see the other primitive instrument, you know, which you know, was recognized as a dulcimer in, you know, the British Isles and such places. So, so real soon after the mountain dulcimer in a folk music revival of the 60s, the hammer dulcimer started catching on, and probably about the late 1960s, players Walt Michael and Bill Spence and some others got a hold of it, and so they both kind of fell out of favor about the same time frame. They both came back in, you know, about the same time frame. Both were played by just regionally, you know, in a pocket of a few players, and so the history is sort of the same, and the irony is the instruments are nothing alike.
Now they're pretty strong now, aren't they? People.
Yes, both of them are.
Yeah.
People are attracted to this by its simplicity. Sometimes its quietness. You know, it's unpretentious. It's like you said earlier. It's a great instrument to play before you go to bed. I mean, when I play one of these, you know, I almost put myself to sleep playing it. So. The hammer dulcimer is a little bit more pyrotechnic in nature. You know, people are drawn by the sound. Some of them by this,
I
you
don't
know, visual display that goes on.
I go to sleep many a night by the hammer dulcimer playing, so that's very relaxing.
Well, it's
to
not
me.
an abrasive sound, but it's a very full sound.
Yeah.
It has a lot of stuff behind it. It's not amplified, but it's resonant, I guess is a good word.
Well, that's how I learn a lot of my songs. By osmosis, my husband plays them over and over on the hammered, and then I learn them to be able to play them with our group.
Well, maybe what we can do is go into the other room. We couldn't fit it out here, but if you would be kind enough to take us through a short what is a mountain dulcimer, hammer dulcimer, and then play us a tune or two, and then I know you two can play a duet for us.
Well, we can both
Give
play
us
the
a-
same. We can both play the same hammer dulcimer too at the same time. We've done.
This is a hammer dulcimer. It takes its name in this country. These are the hammers, the little striking sticks. You'll see two pair here because a player can change his tone by the amount of padding. In fact, most have totally unpadded, and I do have a pair. I forgot to get them out. So that's why you see two sets of hammers. All of them are basically this trapezoidal shape. Two different bridges. The bridge on the right is your bass bridge. And then your center bridge actually is dividing the strings into two different pitches, pitched at a fifth interval apart. So you have your kind of high notes on the left side, your mid-range notes on the right side basically, and your bass notes on this bridge. Of course, with Hammer Dulcimer, nothing can be quite that simple. One of the problems with Hammer Dulcimer is you have the identical note in different places. Now here's an A on the left side of the bridge, an A on the right side of the bridge, and the same A on the bass bridge. So with Hammer Dulcimer, sometimes it becomes a choice thing. Which A do I play, and with which hand do I strike it? With mandolin, I'm more familiar with, there is no choice. A G is the ring finger on the D string. I mean, there's nothing to think about. So with Hammer Dulcimer playing, you have to develop hand patterns. Every song has to be arranged out for the hands, if you will, and then you learn that hand pattern or hammering pattern, and when that becomes in the subconscious level, then you can play without thinking about it. Let's see what else about this. Also, this instrument really doesn't favor left-handers or right-handers, and in fact, for right-handers, consider this. The low notes are on the right side, and like I said, the left notes are. So on the piano, your low notes are played with the left hand, the melody notes with the right hand. So if you wanted to accompany yourself in something slow and pretty, you actually need the left hand to do your melody work, and you would need your right hand to accompany. So it's sort of, you know, at first when you see the layout of this instrument, you kind of know why the day they came up with the piano that this, you know, became a giant egg slicer or something. I'll play something. The Hammer Dulcimer is capable of playing in numerous keys, and usually those in the traditional fiddle keys: D, G, and A, E minor, B minor, A minor. We can play in C as well, and capable of a lot of tunes. The irony of it is like I said earlier in the interview, the ragtime came and just about killed this instrument. Well, now the players can play ragtime on the dulcimer. So part of it was the instrument, but part of it was the players back then. I think I'll play a couple of polkas. polka.
Very nice.
Thank
The sound totally different from the lap dulcimer, but still very, what's the right word? Traditional, folksy. It's pleasing to the ear to hear that. This is a well-used dulcimer, isn't it?
Oh yes, I got this in 1992, and this is my play-out professional dulcimer. In fact, one of my favorite gigs is I play on the streets of Haddonfield at Christmas time, out 3 hours on Friday nights out in the cold in December. And in fact, the very last time I played this past year, we had a wind chill factor of -5.
Good night, nurse. The mummers don't do that.
Yes, I actually literally went across the street to the running store, bought myself mittens, and played in mittens.
Wow.
That night, and for the first time, insulated coveralls. One of my favorite. I love to play on the street, but yes, this instrument gets used pretty well.
You know, with the folding stand and everything, it's almost like the old movies with the 3 cars Monty guy. You can pick it up and run. Yeah. But very nice. Like I bet you it attracts quite a
Yes, it
audience
does.
when you do
Yeah,
that.
that's after all the tuning and the carrying of it and learning these hand patterns and all what goes with Hammer Dulcimer. It all becomes worth it in the end when I'm on the street and people go, "Wow, that's neat."
Can I learn that? How many times do they ask you?
Or I can play at -5 and not, and not have fingering problems like you guys. So, I don't fret about such things. So. Just to show you the kind of different voices of Hammer Dulcimer.
If you want information on Hammer and Mountain Dulcimers, these are the folks to talk to. They're in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, but in the day of the internet and cheap long distance, easy to get a hold of them. Do you do mail order?
Yes.
So they can talk mail order and hook you up with a fine instrument and maybe even help you find somebody local to play with or to learn from. These are great people. I met Mary several years ago at a get-together, a festival, and when we wanted to do a Dulcimer story, this was the place to come. So we hope you enjoyed them. I know we did. And say goodbye, folks.
Bye.
Bye. It's been nice.